What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and every year we see league winners at the running back position come from young breakout stars, and yet people still want to see it before they draft it. They want each player to prove to them why they should be drafted at that ADP instead of leaning into the uncertainty and shooting for the upside. Because if we just look at the last 5, 6, 7 years, outside of Alvin Kamara in 2020, when we look at Jonathan Taylor in 2021, McCaffrey in 2019 and 2018, Gurley before that, Devonta Freeman and David Johnson before that, all of these running backs put up RB1 overall seasons before even reaching their fourth season in the NFL. We know running backs front load their points. They get it all out of the way early, and then age 26, 27, 28, we see them fall off a steep cliff like we saw with Le'Veon Bell, like we saw with Todd Gurley. We want to cash in before that happens, and we not only want to cash in before that happens, but we want to cash in at the cheapest possible price, because that's how you get an RB1 overall season in the early third round, and at that point, you are smashing your league mates. So today we're going to talk about 6 running backs you need to draft before they break out in 2022. Now, I'm not saying all of these guys have RB1 overall seasons in their range of outcomes, but they're all guys who can come out here and smash for you in fantasy. So that's what we're going to get to today. We're not going to waste any more time. If you enjoyed the video at any point, make sure to get down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical. My nitty bag.
So before we get into our specific player targets, I want to go over the data behind targeting young running backs and why they give us access to crazy upside. You guys know I like to back everything up I do here with data. If you don't want that and you just want, hey Ron, give me the breakout running backs, I'll put the timestamps down below. You can find them there. But we've spent all offseason talking about legendary running backs being the key to winning leagues in fantasy football. And this is a term coined by Pat Kerrane. I'll make sure I link the article down below. But a legendary running back is a running back who puts up a 20% win rate or more, which takes your odds of winning a league from 8.33% to 20%. That's 1 out of 12 to 1 in 5 chance to win your league. That is a massive, massive advantage. Now, we usually look at that lens through rounds 1 and 2 because that's where most of them are found, but I wanted to expand it out more just to see the profile of what a legendary running back looks like, even the guys who are drafted in like the 10th, 11th, 12th round. So I went back to 2015 and wrangled up every 20% or better win rate season from running backs drafted in the top 200 per ADP. And we get 12 legendary running back seasons since 2015. We have Alvin Kamara in 2017, James Robinson, Devonta Freeman, McCaffrey twice, David Johnson, James Conner, Todd Gurley, Eckler, Kamara again, Le'Veon Bell, LaShawn McCoy. And we look at that list of 12 running backs, 75% of them, or 8 of them, have been running backs in their first 3 seasons. So that's a great indicator on its own that we want to be targeting running backs in their first 3 seasons. But to take it even a step further, if we look at the right-hand side where it says win rate, if we only look at the running backs to exceed a 25% or more win rate, so that's Devonta Freeman in 2015, McCaffrey twice, David Johnson 2016, and Todd Gurley in 2017, all of these running backs were in their first 3 seasons. So not only are 75% of all legendary running back seasons from running backs in their first 3 years, but every running back season that's not just legendary, but a 25% or better win rate are coming from running backs in their first 3 years because of that discount you can get on them. If you invest in that player before the market sees it, that coupled with just 20 plus point per game upside at the running back position on that cost, you are getting a crazy advantage over your league mates. So now we know young running backs give us maximum upside at a position where that's all I really care about. And of course we have Jonathan Taylor and we have DeAndre Swift, but both of those guys have already finished as RB1s before. They're in their first 3 seasons. Of course, they qualify, but I want to uncover the next guy who hasn't fully broken out yet. So we're going to get a little bit deeper than Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift, who, by the way, both were featured in last year's video, top 5 breakout running backs. So the criteria for today's video are running backs who are yet to record a top 12 season, an RB1 season, but are in their first 3 years in the NFL. And the first breakout running back we're going to talk to for 2022 is Javonte Williams, who's going at the 208 as the RB12 on Underdog. In my rankings, he's my 207 as the RB11. Now, before we even get into Javonte Williams, make sure, if you haven't already, check out Underdog Fantasy. I'll have the link down below in the description. I'll have the link down below in the comments. Right now is peak best ball season. Right now is the best time to draft. This is a great chart from Michael Dubner that shows that drafting teams in late August gives you the best advance rates over expectation across the board. I'm saving up a ton of entries right now. I'm hammering out entries right now. Right now is the best time to get in, get that EV. I imagine there should be another puppy, maybe another Pomeranian. They're doing some fun stuff over on Underdog, so make sure you check it out. Get some best ball entries in before the end of the summer. When you're on there, use promo code Ron and they will match your deposit all the way up to $100. So the difference between my rank and ADP isn't that different, right? 208 RB12 versus 207 RB11. But I will say Javonte was a little bit closer to the 2-3 turn before recently. He started to climb a little bit now that we've gotten some, Melvin Gordon calling him the one, the guy, whatever. But he's still a fine pick there. I'm still taking him in the mid to late second round as my hero RB in a lot of builds. And when we look at Javonte Williams' profile, it's really juicy. He is a 22-year-old running back heading into year 2. And that's a profile that you have to use some imagination with, where it's not cut and dry that he's about to light the league on fire, but we see a lot of the indicators. And that's the archetype we want to be targeting, because if the breakout was obvious and we could sort of shoo him into a top 5 RB season, let's say Melvin Gordon was on the team anymore, he would be a first-round pick in fantasy. So you're getting that uncertainty discount baked in, and we want to exploit that. Now, I just mentioned him, and I know Melvin Gordon is the biggest holdup when it comes to Javonte Williams, but for me, Melvin Gordon doesn't really affect Javonte's upside case, right? When we're chasing these legendary running back seasons, I'm not really cared about the median outcome. So while Gordon is there, I don't think they keep that exact same 50-50 split as last year. Javonte Williams was a rookie last year. We can expect big jumps, right? Jonathan Taylor in his rookie year was a 48.1% snap share guy. Second year last year, Nyheim Hines is still there in that backfield. He goes from a 48.1% snap share to a 68.6% snap share. Melvin Gordon is now older. He could regress, along with not being given the same respect from this coaching staff. This is a different coaching staff, a different regime. You also have the scenario where Melvin Gordon was hanging around free agency, draft time rolled around. The Broncos really weren't making a point to re-sign Melvin Gordon. He just sort of came crawling back, couldn't really get a ton of interest on the market, and re-signed there. Melvin Gordon is now older. He could regress. He could be dusty at this point. He could not be given the same respect from this coaching staff. They brought in a complete new staff with Nathaniel Hackett and all of these guys. There is no allegiance to whatever Melvin Gordon did last year. We even saw that play out in the market where Melvin Gordon hung around. He didn't draw interest from other teams. The Broncos weren't really trying to re-sign him. Then the draft rolls around and they end up getting a deal done on what is much less than what he was paid last year. He just doesn't feel like a priority to them. It does feel a little bit similar. I heard Ben Gretsch talk about this on a podcast. I wanted to say it was on Stealing Signals, or Stealing Bananas is what it was. But it does feel eerily similar to year 2 McCaffrey. CJ Anderson gets signed or whatever to sort of replace Jonathan Stewart. And what you have there is CJ Anderson was going like 9th round. You had McCaffrey go at this suppressed price of like a second round pick. I think we're getting something very similar here with Javonte in this breakout year. Now, let's say you don't agree with me and you like Melvin Gordon. You think that he still has some juice. The NFL is really random, and rarely do backfields stay as stable as it did last year, where this was a clean 50-50 split right down the middle. It would be shocking for this to happen again. At the very least, it should be a 60-40 split, maybe a 55-45 split, but it's going to lean in favor of Javonte Williams. He's in his second year. We see opportunity shares, snap shares climb for running backs. And even in that 60-40 split, there's upside for so much more. Backfields are chaotic. We saw last year with LA. We saw Henderson come out as the bell cow. Or actually, we saw Akers as the bell cow, Terry's Achilles. Henderson was the bell cow. Then it was a split between Henderson and Sony Michel. And then Sony Michel was the lead back. And then Akers comes back in the playoffs. He's the lead back. Green Bay, we had something similar where Aaron Jones was the bell cow. A.J. Dillon worked into a committee. Then Jones gets hurt. Then Jones comes back, and it's a different split. Crazy things happen all the time. Javonte Williams' profile has league-winning upside as this profile where he benefits from the chaos of the season as an extremely talented back from what we've seen so far. Any chaos that strikes, whether that's a Melvin Gordon injury or Melvin Gordon is dust, Javonte Williams gains leverage from that. And when we talk about the talent of Javonte Williams, he's everything we want in one of these breakout running back candidates. He's young. He has juice. He broke a tackle on 31% of his carries last year, according to PFF. Missed tackles forced per attempt is one of the best stats that they have over there. And that is the highest mark that they have had in the PFF era since 2006. This is a tweet from Alex Caruso. I want to say 2006. Before that, there was no PFF grading system. So I want to say it is the highest missed tackles forced per carry number in existence, if not in existence, since 2006, and that is insane for a rookie running back. He has the talent between the tackles. He also had a sneaky high target share last year at 10.2%. So you have a situation where this guy is extremely talented. He was an elite prospect. He flashed in year 1, and he finished as the RB22 in points per game. Now, you transplant the RB22 from a Teddy Bridgewater offense to a Russell Wilson offense, and you give him, instead of a 50-50 split, you give him a 60-40 split. He's already paying off at ADP. I do believe he has that, third, fourth, fifth gear to get to that high-end league-winning type upside. Then we have Travis Etienne, who's going off the board at the 401 as the RB16. I have him almost a round ahead of that as my 303 as my RB14. And with Travis Etienne, it is wheels all the way up. This is everything we are looking for from a running back that's going in the dead zone. You guys know I like to fade running backs going in that round 3 to 6 area. I think Etienne is one of the exceptions here. He is going into his second year. He's unproven. He has a ton of pass catching upside. Yes, Etienne is a black box since we don't have any rookie year stats to go off of, but it's because he was hurt that we got that discount, not because he was bad. So if he had a top 24 finish last year, he'd probably be going right next to Javonte Williams, but we're getting a massive discount because of that uncertainty of him being a black box, and I'm going to lean into that all day, especially when we have a guy with Etienne's profile. Now, again, we have nothing to go off of from year one. He got the Liz Frank injury. He should be good to go. The injury shouldn't be an issue, but we don't have any stats. He missed the entire season. He essentially redshirted. So all we really have to base our valuation on Etienne is his prospect profile and then his projections for 2022. And when we talk about Etienne, the prospect, he's a stud, or he was a stud as a prospect. He was my RB1 in that class, and I still stand by that talent. Even with Javonte being a second-round pick in redraft and Najee looking good in his own right, Etienne was that guy coming out of school. Now, I know a lot of you guys are new to the channel, so you guys aren't all caught up to speed with what I was doing in the Dynasty offseason, but I have a prospect model that predicts top 12 seasons at the running back position, and it's called my RS grading system, and it gives each running back based on their draft capital, film grade, production, athleticism at the combine. It's all weighted in a certain way that correlates to success in the NFL. And Etienne is one of only 15 running backs in my database to score a 9+ in the RS grading system. Of those 14, not including Etienne, all 14 have top 12 finishes, and 13 of those 14 went on to have top 5 finishes. Virtually no misses on this list. Again, Etienne really popped in my model as a guy who checks every box. He was a first-round running back in the NFL draft. That's very rare in the modern NFL, where we had guys like Swift, Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, all very strong prospects in their own right, go in the second round of the NFL draft. Etienne is also 5'10", 215, runs a 4.45. He has elite production. He caught passes at Clemson. He has home run speed. He's the complete package, which brings us to this season. Now, the first holdup is going to be James Robinson. And yes, he's going to be present, but he's coming off an Achilles tear, which is going to be really tough. We don't know if he's still going to be explosive, if he's still going to be efficient. We saw Cam Akers come back from that injury, couldn't stay efficient in the playoffs. I think we're going to see something very similar from James Robinson here, even if he's ready to go for like week 1. Even that, I am skeptical of, even at this point with a lot of positive reviews coming out. And even if he is ready to go for week 1, this is now his third coaching staff in 3 years in his NFL career. There's no guarantee they show him any allegiance. I see this being similar as a DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams situation, where Etienne's going to get the high-value touches. He's going to get the receiving work. He's going to maybe either split the goal line work or get a lot of the goal line work as just this kind of playmaker, touchdown scorer. And James Robinson will probably get the between the 20s carries and the low-value touches. And when we talk about Etienne and his role within this offense, we have his college quarterback throwing him passes, so there's going to be plenty of dump down or check down attempts and a bunch of targets around the line of scrimmage for him. And you can make the case. They don't have a lot of playmakers. You're looking at Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, Evan Ingram. You can make the case that Etienne is their best playmaker or most electric player with the ball in his hands on offense. I don't think that's wild to say. And Mike Clay is extremely conservative with his projections, and he currently has Etienne penciled in at a 12% target share. That is really, really solid for a running back, especially one that we haven't even seen play in the NFL yet. So he is just projecting that out, going on a limb from his college profile, along with the weakness of the playmakers in this offense. The only 7 running backs that Mike Clay has ahead of him in target share are Nyheim Hines, CMC, Eckler, Najee, Swift, Kamara, Aaron Jones. That is it. Just 7 running backs in terms of projecting for more target share than Etienne. So you get this crazy home run swing with a massive discount because he was hurt last year. And he has this profile of a guy who can catch a ton of passes, give you breakaway, run efficiency where he's just taking things to the house on his crazy speed. He did that all the time at Clemson. He has a really intriguing profile. He is one of these guys where I say fade the dead zone, but Etienne is my exception for this year. He feels a lot like DeAndre Swift last season. Next up, we have Breece Hall, who is going off the board at the 408 as the RB18. I have him in my rankings as my 406 as the RB15. Now, this is another instance of me being high on this player. I have him 13.2% of my teams, but the market is catching up. He used to be like a fifth-round player. Now you have to pay a late fourth for him. And I still think that's a fine price, but I don't think that's a screaming value anymore at this point. Now, when we talk about Breece Hall, he's a rookie, so all we really have to go off of is prospect profile and then what we can kind of project forward for this season. And when we talk about Breece Hall, the prospect, he came out as an elite prospect in my database, and that carries a lot of upside. He is somebody that is a freak athlete. He put up similar combine numbers to Jonathan Taylor. You guys can see it here. He's frailer at 5'11", 217, but he ran a 4.39. He has good size. He has a 9.96 RAS, and that gives us a lot of efficiency potential for him where he can have breakaway runs as a very fast running back. We've seen it from JT where he's led the NFL in the last 2 years and runs over 15 or more yards. Breece Hall has that in his range of outcomes where he is fast enough, he's explosive enough to potentially create his own efficiency without even needing a good offense. He's also a little more well-rounded than Jonathan Taylor, where Jonathan Taylor is this like generational between the tackles runner, and he can get things done in the receiving game, but Breece Hall was more complete in college. Where Jonathan Taylor is this generational runner between the tackles, I would call Breece Hall a little more well-rounded than that, where he has this all-purpose skill set where he caught 23 passes as a freshman, 23 that next year, and then 36 catches in his final season at Iowa State. So Breece Hall is this really clean prospect where if I go into my database and I pull up his rookie comps, he has some really juicy comps where he has Mixon in his range, Jonathan Taylor, Chubb, Matt Forte, all really solid running backs. And you also have Mixon and Forte being these guys with strong receiving profiles like a Breece Hall. And when we transfer that over into year one, we had Jonathan Taylor, who was the RB8 as a rookie. We had Matt Forte, who was the RB3 as a rookie. It just outlines his upside as soon as year one. Again, we're swinging for the fences, and that's what we want in the fourth round with Breece Hall. We don't want to chase 15-point per game, projectable touches. Breece Hall is an upside swing. He has home run ability, and he catches passes. That's really what we're looking for here. Now, when we project him forward into 2022, people squirm a little bit because the Jets also have Michael Carter. And I know I got a lot of questions today. I got some comments where the Jets are coming out. They're saying Michael Carter's our RB1. Guys, I really don't value preseason reports all that much. The play with Breece Hall, again, is that early on, it's going to be 50-50-ish. And then as the season progresses, Breece Hall can kind of make his way through the committee and then be the lead back there where you're betting on the talent. You're hoping by the end he can supplant Michael Carter and become the main guy. Like we saw with Jonathan Taylor in his rookie year, where he ended up as the RB8 in points per game after a brutally slow start. He wasn't even really startable the first 10 weeks, or not startable, but he was like a back-end RB2 through the first 10 or so weeks. And then he was the RB3 in points per game after week 10, averaging 24.3 points per game as a league winner down the stretch. I think Breece Hall is going to have a similar path. Michael Carter is going to be annoying in the beginning. He's going to be a thorn in Breece Hall's side. But as the season progresses, that's when Breece Hall gains some steam, some momentum. If he is as talented as we think he can be, then I think that he will jump Michael Carter, be the lead back, and then benefit from the efficiency that his talent will bring. And the reason that I'm not super worried about Michael Carter is because, one, the team has told us that they don't value him all that highly, and two, he isn't that talented of a player. Yes, Michael Carter's in this backfield, but the Jets gave us a clear indicator that Breece Hall is their guy. They traded up. And as a Jets fan, I know this front office better than most people. Joe Douglas is not going to trade up unless he absolutely has to, or unless he has a guy that he absolutely loves. If you guys remember, it was I want to say the 2019 draft class, 2020 draft class, whenever Denzel Mims was in there. Actually, I want to say that was the 2021 draft class. But Joe Douglas was out there trading back like 3 times and just kept on, extending the line, and then took Denzel Mims at the end. He trades back a ton of times. You'll even see him trade back on like day 3 and stuff. He trades back a ton. He comes from a analytics-based background from the Eagles organization. For him to trade up in the second round and then take a running back with that premium pick, it speaks volumes for a guy who plays the game sort of in a Moneyball type perspective. And the reason for them trading up is because they love Breece Hall, because they saw the Houston Texans at pick 37. They thought that the Houston Texans would not come up, but they would draft Breece Hall, and he wouldn't make it past the Houston Texans, so they had to trade up ahead of them. And the reason they were so fixed on trading up for him is because if they believed that Michael Carter was the guy, their franchise running back, a workhorse, they wouldn't have made this move. They wouldn't have traded up for Breece Hall. So this all speaks volumes about not just how they feel about Breece Hall, but how they feel about Michael Carter. If Michael Carter was this future running back, they could have just waited on a Breece Hall, let him pass by, and they can just take a Tyler Algier at the end, the Pacheco at the end. They can take whoever they like at the end of the draft on day 3. They know they can get away with doing that. So them trading up for Breece Hall, again, I think it speaks volumes across the board. And when we look at what Michael Carter did last year, it's not all that impressive. He's a smaller satellite type back, drafted on day 3. And I think that my sophomore comps pull up here, Nyheim Hines, Devin Singletary, Duke Johnson, Roy Helu, I think these are all about right as comps. His 11 points per game, 11.5% target share wasn't that great. He was a bronze rookie coming out. The RS grading system didn't love him as a prospect. And I think even his 11 points per game and 11.5% target share are a bit inflated. Where if we look at his splits just when Mike White was playing last year, Michael Carter benefited a lot from this Mike White, I don't want to call it rule or regime, but he had 4 games where Mike White comes in and he peppers the hell out of Michael Carter. Where if we look at these splits right here, in 4 games with Mike White, Michael Carter was averaging 19.02 points per game. Without him, only 7.9. With Mike White, 8 targets per game. Without him, 2.5. There's something going on here where Mike White, a guy just trying to make it in the NFL, targeting it to whoever's open on the checkdowns, Michael Carter was just in the right place at the right time. I think calling him a talented player because of this 4-game stretch or pointing to what he did over the entire season, I think it's a false flag. Again, without Mike White, he was really only penciled in for 2.5 targets per game, 42 on the entire season. We could see that even come down with Breece Hall coming in here as someone that can catch passes as well. Now, again, I think Breece Hall can come in here. It's going to be frustrating early on. He's not an early season play, but the bet is that he is efficient. He's talented enough to make it work with less. Where we had a guy like DeAndre Swift as a rookie. He was RB16 on a 48% opportunity share. Jonathan Taylor was an RB8 on 53% opportunity share. What we're hoping for here is eventually Breece Hall wrangles the RB1 spot from Michael Carter, and then from there goes crazy. We know that rookie running backs backload their production when we look at running backs, rookies versus veterans. This is a great chart from Jack Miller where we can see rookie running backs, they compile their points on the back half of the season, which is where we make our money. In redraft leagues, we need stacked teams for the playoffs. We need to finish in first place. We need to do well in the playoffs. That's how we get our money. And when we draft a rookie running back like Breece Hall, it is a future play. You're going to want to have an out in the beginning of the season where Breece Hall isn't startable through 5-6 weeks. You're going to want to have some kind of other plan. If you can't stomach that, then maybe Breece Hall isn't for you. He's a risky pick. He's a high upside pick. He's also a late season pick. So you have to structure your team in a way for it to make sense, and you have to be comfortable with that. Then we have A.J. Dillon, who goes at the 602 as the RB21, and I have him as my 604 as the RB19. And I haven't gotten to draft a ton of A.J. Dillon. I'm trying to make a point to force myself to draft more of him. I'm right on market with him. He's not somebody that's a smash to me, but I think the market is right on this one, having him so high, because his profile does scream breakout running back to me, where he looks like a young Derrick Henry who got there on efficiency and raw talent early on in his career, despite his crowded backfields with DeMarco Murray, Dion Lewis, all of that. A.J. Dillon has that in his range of outcomes as a round 2 running back that didn't get a bell cow workload right out the gate, and he looks like Derrick Henry. I believe Derrick Henry is like 6'3", 247. A.J. Dillon is the same weight as Derrick Henry, just compacted from 6'3" to 6 foot. He's 6 foot 247. He is a brick house, 33.5 BMI, 98th percentile speed score, 90th percentile burst score. He is this archetype of a bowling ball, battering ram. He even has unicorn type upside where he is a Derrick Henry, where there's just no running backs that are like him. He plays in the cold. This is a hand in the dirt take, but he plays in the cold up there in the NFC North. Nobody's going to want to tackle this guy when it's 15 degrees out. You got the hand warmers going, and A.J. Dillon is out there like a stallion with no tights on or any Under Armour stuff going on. He is out there raw dogging it in the heat, bringing you 250 pounds at 4.5 speeds. Now, that's all exciting. That paints his outside. The issue here is that A.J. Dillon shares a backfield with Aaron Jones, who's also extremely talented. This is not a Michael Carter situation where Dillon can just beat him out. There isn't really an outcome where A.J. Dillon straight up beats out Aaron Jones, but I think it's lazy to call A.J. Dillon a pure handcuff, where he is just the backup behind Aaron Jones, and while that's happening, he's unstartable. I decided to pull up Mike Clay's projections, where I took his projections and I put it into weighted opportunities per game so we could see how much volume A.J. Dillon and Tony Pollard should be penciled in for without any injuries to their backfields. And when we look at that, it puts A.J. Dillon in the same projectable volume category as guys like Kareem Hunt, Rhamondre Stevenson, Chase Edmonds, even guys in his range like CEH, Miles Sanders, Antonio Gibson. He is scheduled for a little bit less in terms of weighted opportunities per game, but not so much so that he doesn't have any standalone value. He is not Alexander Mattison. I've seen that a lot on YouTube where people just say, why would you draft one of those guys? They're handcuffs. Just take Alexander Mattison later. Madison is only penciled in for 7.7 weighted opportunities per game. That's outside of like the top 50 running backs in the NFL. There's no standalone value there. Dillon, on the other hand, 11.1 weighted opportunities per game. He is matching or just a little bit less than the running backs in his range in terms of projectable volume. We have to remember there is going to be touches to go around in this backfield. Aaron Jones has never been a bell cow. He's hovered around a 50 to 60% opportunity share. And I think both Dillon and Aaron Jones can pay off, similar to Kamara, Ingram in those 2017, 2018 years with Drew Brees, where there's going to be enough touchdowns to go around. They have Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams is gone. Aaron Jones is going to take a bunch of snaps at wide receiver, and Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are easily the two best playmakers on this offense. This offense is going to score points. I think that it's going to be from their doing. I think that if we look at this team, the touchdown scored leaders, I don't think this is even that wild to say, but the touchdown scoring leaders should be Dillon and Aaron Jones on this team, with Aaron Rodgers having a ton of touchdowns as well. And if we look at last year, Aaron Jones was returning from an injury, so this might have not been a complete role change. It might have been Aaron Jones is a little bit hurt, but it's at least somewhat telling that from weeks 12 on, when Aaron Jones returned from injury after seeing A.J. Dillon as a workhorse running back, the coaches gave 22 red zone touches to Aaron Jones's 8 from those 6 weeks where they both played after the Aaron Jones injury. I see A.J. Dillon leading this team in carries and goal line carries, and he's in play to, if he's in play to lead the team in carries and score like double-digit touchdowns, he pays off there without even needing an injury to Aaron Jones. And then Aaron Jones can do that Kamara thing where Aaron Jones has always scored a preposterous amount of touchdowns based on his touches. He's going to be wildly efficient. He's going to have a big receiving game role where he's in play for like 75 plus targets. I'm not predicting it, but it's in the range of outcomes where both of these guys pay off, similar to an Ingram Kamara situation where the offense is consolidated with these two running backs and they both have their distinct valuable roles, where A.J. Dillon has his red zone work, he has his carries, and Aaron Jones has his targets and efficiency on touchdowns. Which then brings us to the trapdoor contingency upside of A.J. Dillon, where if Aaron Jones was to go out, and let's say he had a season-ending injury tomorrow, A.J. Dillon would be a second-round pick. You can't say that about the running backs in his range, or say Elijah Mitchell. Let's say Jeff Wilson, Trey Sermon, Ty Davis-Price, they all get, they all get the plague, and they're done forever tomorrow. Elijah Mitchell maybe bumps like 6 picks up. Same thing with Josh Jacobs and like Zamir White or Amir Abdullah behind him. A.J. Dillon is one of these guys that have a scorched earth outcome, where if anything was to happen to Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon would be a league winner. And even though you need an injury to get there, it still needs to be factored into his upside. So he's not a must draft for me, but anywhere in that 6-7 turn, I think he's a fine pick. He's somebody I want to force myself to draft more of. Our fifth breakout running back today is going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's going off the board at the 7-10 as the RB26. In my rankings, I have him as my 6-12 as my RB22. So I have him about a round ahead of consensus. I'm not trying to take him in the 6th round. I really like him as a 7th, 8th round type pick. And I got to be honest with you guys. I wanted to fade CH this year so bad. He was a round 2-3 turn pick last season, and he was awful. He returned a 5.3% win rate. He burned a lot of us. But that's why we're getting a discount this year. And I think that it would be wise to buy back in, where we're getting a round 7-8 price tag here. This Chiefs backfield has created some wild ADPs in the past. We had 1st round rookie CEH. We had 3rd round CEH last year. We had 2019 Damian Williams in the 3rd round. We had 2017 Spencer Ware in the 5th round, which then brings us to 7th round CEH, which I think is too much of a discount. The perceived RB1 on the Chiefs should probably be a dead zone running back at the 5-6 turn, but we're getting a discount because he burned people. Now, when we talk about CEH, I'm not going to tell you that he's the same type of guy as a Javonte Williams or a Breece Hall or an Etienne, where I'm excited about the talent in the profile. The talent in the profile really aren't there, but I think at this point in the draft, when we're talking about 7th, 8th round picks, you can push aside the talent for the situation when it's something like the Chiefs that are going to be a lock to be a top 5 to 7 scoring offense in 2022. They still have Pat Mahomes. They still have Andy Reid. And just when we look at what it would take to pay off in the 8th round or 7th round, Damian Harris was an 8th round pick last year. He averaged 14 points per game, and he paid off on a 10% win rate. I think CH can do the same. CH averaged 13.5 points per game as a rookie. It really wouldn't be that much of a step up for him to flirt with 14 to 15 points per game at this price tag in this situation. When we look at somebody last year who thrived without even having a ton of talent, Darrell Williams, he came out here and averaged 17.8 points per game from week 6 through 10 while competing with Jerick McKinnon and Derek Gore. If Darrell Williams can do that, average 17.8 points per game, I don't think it's that crazy to see CEH in a similar role average somewhere in the range of 15 points per game. Now, where things get juicy is talking about the roster bubble with this team, especially in the backfield, where we have reports now that Derek Gore is hurt. He's on the PUP, I believe. Or maybe he's on the IR. So now we have a 4-man backfield of Ronald Jones, Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, and CEH. Right now, it seems like Rojo is going to be the one that gets cut. It seems like they're going to keep 3 to 4 running backs on this team. So Derek Gore going to the IR might have saved Ronald Jones, where maybe now they'll bring Ronald Jones in there. The thing is with Ronald Jones, though, is the way that he takes away from CEH is by being the between the tackles grinder, taking away between the 20s looks, taking away goal line works. The issue is, or the positive for CEH, is that even if they keep 4 running backs on the team, which I think they'll keep 3 to 4, the Derek Gore thing makes it likely that they hold on to Ronald Jones. But on game days, they're only going to have 3 running backs active. They already have a fullback on the roster in Michael Burton. It wouldn't make a ton of sense to have 4 running backs active. So even if Ronald Jones doesn't get cut, he won't be affecting Clyde Edwards-Helaire on game day, and he probably won't touch the field as an active running back without an injury to Jerick McKinnon or Pacheco. So the dynamic that creates on game days is you have CEH taking the between the 20s, the goal line work, mixing in on passing downs. You have McKinnon taking all of the 2-minute drill, long down and distance snaps, and then you have Pacheco mixing in as a special team specialist and change of pace type back. So when we have the bulk of the carries going to CEH and he's in play for goal line work, that's all you really need on this Chiefs team, where we can see him be a top 12 running back from a 10 to 15 touchdown season, sort of like a James Conner last year, where he was that 0 RB hammer on a really strong offense. We could see something very similar from CEH, even as much as I don't believe in the talent. The last running back we're going to talk about today is Rhamondre Stevenson. He's going off the board at the 802 as the RB28. In my rankings, I have as my 709 as my RB27. He is another one that keeps creeping up. I hope you guys have been subscribed all offseason, and we've talked about at least one of these running backs at least once this offseason, and since then, all of their prices have gone up. And when we look at Rhamondre Stevenson, we have gotten even more positive news since I last pumped him up. And we have been hoping that Rhamondre Stevenson is going to split carries with Damian Harris, but inherit that Brandon Bolden, James White receiving role. And we got positive news once James White retired. And now we're getting even more positive news because the guy that Rhamondre Stevenson was competing with for that role was Ty Montgomery. It seemed like Ty Montgomery might just, fit in seamlessly as the James White guy. But now we're getting some buzz in Rhamondre's favor here, where we have a tweet from Mike Reese saying, Bill Belichick acknowledges that running backs Damian Harris and Rhamondre Stevenson are looking at all 3 downs, and the team has to plan accordingly on that. This was a notable change from preseason game number 2. No more designated passing back per se. So Ty Montgomery probably failed his audition to be the next James White. So now this is going to be a 2-man committee for Rhamondre Stevenson. He's going to be a lock for the long down and distance and 2-minute drill snaps. And it's just going to be him and Damian Harris, which is really, really interesting. This is a backfield that is going to supply a ton of fantasy points. Mike Clay has them projected for the 13th most rush attempts, 4th most rushing touchdowns. That's a lot of fantasy points to go around between Rhamondre Stevenson and Damian Harris, both guys who aren't even penciled in as top 24 running backs. And if we just pencil in Rhamondre Stevenson for the receiving role, along with like 40% of the running back carries, he's going to flirt with top 24 numbers. This is a guy with a ton of juice that can benefit from efficiency. Last year, he was 11th in yards after contact per attempt, 6th in elusiveness rating, 3rd in yards after catch per reception. And not only can he be efficient on his touches because of his, juice and talent, but if he flashes enough talent, he can then tip the scales, where Damian Harris maybe is penciled in for 55 to 60% of the running back carries and Rhamondre 40%. But if he looks good and he's explosive and he has more juice than Damian Harris, that can tip the scales from 60-40 to 50-50 to 55-45. And if we then see Rhamondre Stevenson with 55 to 60% of the running back carries, plus all of the passing down work, that's a top 15 back in the New England offense. Love the upside here with Rhamondre Stevenson. As long as he's an 8th round pick, I think he's still fine to grab. I know he's rising up ADP boards. 7th round is where it gets too much for me, but 8th round I think is absolutely fine for Rhamondre Stevenson. He feels like a nice breakout candidate this season. Now that's going to do it for us today, fellas. As always, if you want access to my complete rankings, that is going to be on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. Has my top 200 PPR rankings, and it makes sure that you are drafting structurally sound, where I push all of my young, ascending, breakout running backs, elite running backs into the top 2 rounds, push up wide receivers, And then after the running back dead zone, I actually start to push up running backs past the Russell Gages, Julio Jones type archetypes, McCole Hardman archetypes, Jacoby Myers, for these what I'm calling green zone running backs, which are the Rhamondre Stevensons, Chase Edmonds, you have Kareem Hunts of the world. I push them up to make sure that you are drafting structurally sound. And if you want to make sure you're targeting these breakout running backs in your draft rooms, make sure you go check out patreon.com/Ron Stewart. It'll be in the description. It'll be at the top of the comment section down below. And that is going to do it for us today. This ran a little bit longer than I thought it was going to, so I'm going to make this quick. As always, if you enjoyed it, make sure down below, subscribe, leave a like, and I will see you guys in the next one.
No, I'm critical. My nitty bag, my kitty boots. I got the juice, I got the juice.
Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on.